Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
It's happened! The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
He struck him out looking! It's over!
Feels like the season's already been so long, and we're only 7 games in. Welcome into Believe in Texas Rangers, everybody. I'm your host, Mitch Vareldis, and we come to you recording Wednesday night, so the time you're hearing this will probably be on the Thursday off day, as the Rangers are making their way back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area to get set for a big series upcoming against the bitter rival Houston Astros. We'll touch on that later, but we're going to start by just recapping the 3 games that they had against the Tampa Bay Rays, and of course, leading with the biggest news to come out of this series is the fact that Josh Jung, the second-year third baseman for this club, is out on the injured list, was officially placed on the injured list yesterday. He is dealing with a fractured wrist. And initially, at first, you're thinking, okay, this is something that the Rangers should be able to manage for a while without him. And we saw that they called up top prospect Justin Foscue. Ezekiel Duran has had some great at-bats to start the season. We know what he's capable of. At the same time, we got hit with news that maybe we weren't necessarily expecting, and yet we end up getting. So Josh Jung, he suffers the fractured wrist, as I mentioned. And then general manager Chris Young informed the members of the Rangers beat today, so Kennedy Landry, Evan Grant, and many others, informed them that the initial x-rays created optimism as far as the 6-week timeline that they had presented. But now, this is post-surgery. It appears that there was more involved in repairing the damage than initially anticipated. So instead of a 6-week timeline, it's now an 8 to 10-week timeline. So the base difference is obvious. 2 weeks. In addition, at least 2 weeks. Maybe an additional month. That's the obvious takeaway. But the other takeaway is now that the pressure's kind of turned up a bit on some of these other guys. Particularly, I would say Ezekiel Duran. I know Josh Smith has been getting a couple reps. I think he was a starting shortstop today in the Rangers win over the Rays. Justin Foscue as well. I mean, who's to say that this team was expecting to put Foscue on the opening day roster? They obviously didn't. He was going to start with Round Rock. But now he's here. He's going to be, we'll see, he hasn't debuted yet. He's going to be a pivotal part of that third base occupancy and making sure that that position stays covered until Josh Jung can come back. Although, I would mostly expect Duran to handle the primary load there. We'll see. But it's an opportunity for the 3 of those guys, really. For Duran, who's got the experience. Smith, who's been part of this team for a while. Maybe they end up platooning the 2 guys, depending on the pitching matchup, because Smith hits from the left side and the Duran from the right, as you know. And then Foscue is kind of the wild card here. Foscue now gets a chance early on to impress. Gets called up. Now you're a part of the club. You're here. You are seen in the eyes of this organization as one of our top prospects. Can you go out there on short notice and in dire need and prove to be that top prospect that everybody is expecting you to be. This team was already dealing with so many injuries on the pitching side of things. The last thing that they needed was for somebody as pivotal as Josh Jung to go down on the offensive side of things. And Josh Jung, too, he's been awesome to start the year. He's already hit 2 home runs. He's driving in runs like crazy. He's getting on base. He's scoring. Like, Josh Jung has already been off to a torrid start to the season. And now to lose him just 6 games, 7 games, technically speaking, into the year, it's a huge blow. It's a bummer, but I will emphasize again, it remains a tremendous opportunity for these younger players or these role players to really step up in his absence. So that's a bummer, but hopefully Josh recovers well, because I know he had a frustrating spring dealing with an injury. So the hope is that Josh isn't out for too much longer. And when he comes back, he'll just be a tremendous boost, and the Rangers will be in good position by the time he comes back. And who knows, maybe he'll even time it up with when Max Scherzer or Tyler Mahle return from their injury recovery. It's probably not going to take all the way to Jacob deGrom's recovery. Like, Jacob's expected to come back in August, if even August. So hopefully Josh will be back in time. We know Nathaniel Lowe is still on the shelf, and maybe he can come back relatively soon in a couple of weeks, we hope. Jared Walsh has been filling in rather well. So maybe the expectation is that the guys that are on the roster right now are going to be able to step up in Jung's absence. That seems to be the biggest storyline from the weekend. No surprise there. It was the biggest story, and of course it happened on the Monday game. And the way that this particular show that you're listening to is structured, we only come at you a couple times a week, and we try to get you the information as soon as we get it. There would have been, should it have been the 8 to 10 week timeline that we got as of today, we would have reacted differently. But given the circumstances that we would have been able to recap it and lead it off, we figured we would just bring it to you here. So let's talk about the most recent game. The Rangers, in case you missed it, they took care of business. They won 2 out of the 3 games against Tampa Bay. And 2 of them, or 1 of them, I should say, was very much powered by the offense. The first game, if I'm not mistaken, they won 9-3 over the Rays. That was also a really good start from Dane Dunning, where he threw into the 7th inning, allowing just 3 runs and struck out 7, too. So Dane was really impressive. Andrew Heaney was pretty impressive, too. He ended up throwing 90 pitches and couldn't get through the 5th inning, but he struck out 7 batters and he forced 18 swings and misses. That's huge. And I think I was reading a Sarah Lang's tweet. She does great statistical research for MLB. She pointed out that the pitchers with the most swings and misses on that particular day, March 8th, Garrett Crochet and Andrew Heaney leading the way with 18, Brian Bale of the Red Sox with 17, Yu Darvish with 16, Graham Ashcraft with 12. Like, he was in a pretty decent group of good strikeout pitchers, in particularly Crochet and Darvish, and he stood out, and he stood atop the rest of them. But we have to talk about the pitching performance of Nathan Eovaldi earlier today. It was by far all that we could have hoped for in terms of how Nate looked in his start against the Cubs versus what we got to see in this start against the Rays. And of course, the biggest talking point and what led to this spectacular start for Eovaldi was the way he was able to utilize his splitter. And whatever it is about Nate succeeding so darn well when it comes to pitching against the Rays or even pitching in the Trop, his splitter was just moving so well and so late in the point of break that it was forcing so much foolishness out of the Rays hitters. Nate's final line today, 7 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts. So he got the strikeout pitch working again. That was good to see. More importantly, because the big stat that I pointed out after Nate's first start was the lack of the swing and miss. And I believe it was 6 that he only had against the Cubs. He had 23 against the Tampa Bay Rays lineup today. So I guess I don't have to worry about marking or flagging that first start anymore if Nate's going to go out and do exactly the necessary improvements that we would have hoped for in his very next start. David Robertson came in and got the hold. It was a safe situation for the longest time. It was a 1-0 game up until the top of the ninth inning, and then offense kind of came to life for the Rangers. They plated 3 in that top of the ninth inning off of Garrett Clevenger, the reliever for Tampa. And then Jose Leclerc, again, still a little bit rusty, and once again in a non-safe situation. This time not a hold situation, just a situation where the team was up 4-0, and you figure this is a very low-stakes situation for Jose to pitch in, and he's had a couple of days off, so we might as well give him some throwing. It was still a little bit rough for Jose. Maybe he's just working his way back into form. I'm not totally freaking out about it like the start again or the outing against the Cubs. That was rather rough to watch. This one was less rough. Still not great. An inning, he allowed a couple of hits, he allowed a run. Took him 21 pitches. 14 of them he was able to get in the zone, at least. Got the first pitch strike 4 out of the 6 batters that he faced. And he only got 1 swing and miss as far as the strikes distribution was concerned. We're keeping an eye on Jose, but we think in the end he's gonna find his way back out of this funk. But it was really, 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 really encouraging to see Nate Eovaldi bounce back in a huge way against a Rays team that had been coming in with one of the hottest hitters in the first few games of the season, and Yandy Diaz, was essentially silenced this entire series. He logged for the 2 games, or at least these 2 games. So he had 1 hit in their win, in the Rays win over the Rangers, had no hits in 5 at-bats in the 9-3 loss. And then today he only had 1 hit. So one of the league's hottest hitters only had 2 hits against you in the entire series in a total of, 3, 4, 5. That would have been 12 at-bats. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's positive to see there. I mean, for the most part, they shut down the Rays' offensive firepower guys for most of the series. And Randy Arozarena is still struggling to get things going. He's hitting 1 out of every 4 times he's at the plate. But really strong outings from the pitching this weekend. So Dane Dunning was really good. Andrew Heaney, it's kind of Heen Dog's thing, right? It's the high pitch counts, but he'll get you strikeouts. And if anything, he's going to make batters earn their plate appearances, earn their stripes per se. I would love to see the pitch counts go down. I know it's early in the season, but 90 through not even 5 innings of work is something to keep an eye on. Corey Seager got his first home run of the year. We had felt like we'd been waiting for that for a while. This home run that he hit just barely sneaked over the wall and just barely stayed within fair territory down the right field line in the trop. That was really cool to see. Good for Corey. Happy that he's in the home run column because he's going to be counted upon a lot this year, especially now with the injury to Josh Jung. Marcus Semien has drastically cooled off after the first couple of games that they had at home. So hopefully Corey starts this like sparks Corey a little bit because he had a rest day early on in the year. So as long as Seager looks really healthy and looks locked in, I think this offense for the most part is going to be fine. Let's close game and stat recap with a little Wyatt watch. So far this regular season, the numbers are starting to dip a bit. He's hitting .240 now in 25 at-bats, has 3 runs batted in, and has a .606 OPS. And I tell you what, I, like everybody else, I'm as anxious and eager to see him hit that first home run of the year. We came so close in that Sunday game against the Cubs where he got the triple that it basically went off the wall. We were oh so close. I think it's going to come this weekend at home against the Astros. If I'm going to do a little Nostra Mitch here, like fake predictor. Ooh, he knows his stuff. No, I don't know anything. I think Langford is going to hit his home run this weekend against the Astros. I think he's going to feel the bitterness of the rivalry, And I think he's going to be locked in and amped up and ready to go with these 4 games coming up against Houston. But other than that, we're getting kind of a decent gauge as far as Langford. He's been all over the place as far as the lineup and the field is concerned. Today, in particular, he was the left fielder and he was hitting third. It's kind of what happens when you lose Josh Jung, who's a pivotal part of the order. So he hit ahead of Adolis Garcia. That moved Jared Walsh up to the 5th spot. And then in the other games, he was the DH in the 5th spot in the loss to Tampa on Tuesday. And then in the win against Tampa, he was in the 6th spot. That was the game that Josh Jung got hurt. So hindsight 2020. And he was playing in left field. So we're seeing a lot of outfield time for for Wyatt, excuse me. So I'm curious to see how that will continue to play out as the weeks go on. But he's already flashed the leather in one game. So what's the worst thing that can happen? We've seen his speed. We know how valuable he can be. And I think that Wyatt's going to continue to carry the load in that role, in a power hitting spot in the order, and at a prime position, or in an important position, I should say, where he's in left field. Maybe they even slot him in right field. Who knows? But for right now, I still like what I'm seeing. Some of the approaches have been hit and miss, literally, baseball pun. Some of the at-bats have been a lot shorter than others. But for the most part, he looks very calm. He looks patient. And he looks raring for that first home run or that first really big hit. I mean, the 2-run triple is by far his biggest hit so far. Once he hits that home run, it's the world is going to be his oyster. We can tell. All right, let's transition to something fun.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
So David Schoenfeld with ESPN, hope I pronounced that correctly. He published today, Wednesday, that I'm taping this, the MLB 2024 Watchability Index, ranking the most fun teams to watch. And I'll try and abbreviate his system as far as how he goes about ranking the fun teams. And then I'll obviously tell you where the Rangers stack up. So he has a 10-point scale for these different categories that help him determine what is the value of a team and how watchable they are. So here are the categories. Star power, that seems self-explanatory. Youth, in terms of the vibrant and young, talented prospects that immediately come up and impact the roster. Base running, so he's looking for teams that can utilize the base paths well. 4- and 5-star catches, which is to say, like, can you make a defensive play where the probability is very much not in your favor, and you make the defensive highlight that gets all the audience to go, ooh, wow, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. The 425 plus foot home runs, Bombi can do that on like a Tuesday, as we've seen. Minutia, and what he qualifies as minutia is the ballpark, the uniforms, the mascots, unintentional comedy, etc. It's more pleasing to watch a game from Wrigley than, say, the Trop. Timing. And then he has a bonus section as well, which is, as Schoenfeld says, anything else I want to add for a team at my whim, up to a maximum of 5 points. And he sets it from 30 to 1. So my instinctual reaction was to scroll all the way to the bottom where number 1 is. Number 1 is the Dodgers with a total score of 40.5 on Schoenfeld's scale. The Baltimore Orioles come in at 2 with a 39-point score. The Atlanta Braves come in at 3rd with a 37-point score. The Arizona Diamondbacks come in at 4 with a 35.5 score from Schoenfeld's system. And then would you look at that? The Texas Rangers, number 5 with 34 points on this Schoenfeld scale. He gives star power an 8 out of 10, youth a 9 out of 10, base running a 3 out of 10, catches a 3 out of 10, 425 plus homers a 4 out of 10, and minutia a 2 out of 10. So safe to say that the Rangers got a huge boost from star power and youth because Schoenfeld didn't give them a ton of credit in other areas. But they got 5 bonus points from Schoenfeld, and here's why. +1 for when Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer return. +1 for manager Bruce Bochy. +1 for Evan Carter's plate discipline. +1 for Marcus Semien never taking a day off. +0.5 for Adolis Garcia's arms. Not his ability to throw, just his literal arms. And then a 0.5 point for Corey Seager's ability to crush the first pitch. So without those bonus 5 points, the Rangers would have finished with a 29 on the Schoenfeld scale, on the watchability index. Here's what he says about the Rangers. And then we could talk about, could there be an argument for the Rangers actually being the most fun team to watch? So here's what Schoenfeld says. The Rangers win the World Series and now add Carter for a full season, plus fellow super rookie Wyatt Langford. What a turnaround for this franchise in such a short time. If they do manage to get a healthy deGrom and Scherzer back in the second half, maybe they can become the first team to repeat since the 00 Yankees, karma caps there. The dynamic offense is going to score a ton of runs. The only negatives here are a lack of action on the bases, although Carter and Langford will add more speed, he says, and the antiseptic nature of watching a game from Globe Life Field, which I admittedly have not been to yet. It's on my bucket list. So I'm going to abstain from commentary as far as opinions on the park. The jersey set is pretty bland other than the throwback baby blues. Yeah, don't be dissing the baby blues, first of all. Second of all, I have to admit that the World Series unis for this year, the gold trim, is an absolute fire touch. And I remember emphasizing it after the opening day pod. It pops so well. It really does. So there's 2 ways that we could approach this. Is he correct in assuming that the Rangers are the 5th most fun team to watch based off of his index? Are the Rangers more fun than the Arizona Diamondbacks, Atlanta Braves, Baltimore Orioles, and LA Dodgers? I think, technically speaking, it's really hard to top the Dodgers in terms of watchability. They have 3 former MVPs. Their pitching staff is ridiculous, and they spend money like crazy. They're the Dodgers. It's very hard to top them in terms of watchability. Aren't the Rangers a little more watchable than the Baltimore Orioles, though? No disrespect to Baltimore, because they were the best seed in the American League. Obviously, that had 0 impact on Texas's plans last year in the postseason. And to Baltimore's credit, it's not necessarily star power driven unless you want to consider their young guys star power. But Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson are a fearsome duo. They've got Jackson Holliday waiting in the wings. And then they just added Corbin Burns to their pitching staff this offseason. So I guess you could argue that they have some intrigue in terms of the youth aspect of their team. And I think they get an extra bump because their ballpark is one of the better ones in the entire league. But I don't know. Am I more intrigued to watch the Baltimore Orioles or the Texas Rangers if I'm just casually tuning in? And maybe I'm defeating the purpose of the index entirely, but I don't know. Branding kind of matters. This is the reigning World Series champion Texas Rangers. They should get priority in terms of any form of watchability whatsoever, right? On top of that, they have the star power. Their offense is crazy good and talented. And the only thing missing from them right now is their top 2 in their rotation. I almost wonder if the Rangers really could make a stronger argument to be a more popular watch or a more watchable team than Baltimore. Although, if you look into it deeper, they are the 2nd most watchable team in the American League, which, if you're only behind Baltimore, you're in good company. But I think there's a lot about the Rangers that make them a very enjoyable and fun, watchable team. So I thought that was a fun read today, and I wanted to just pass that along. I'll pass along this too. And credit to Evan Grant, who's with the Dallas Morning News, who's been covering the Rangers for a long, long time. Many of you probably know the name Evan Grant when I say it. He had a report from a couple of days ago that the Rangers were among several teams that sent scouts to watch the season debut of Japanese ace Roki Sasaki, the 22-year-old, who, if any of you out there were avid watchers of the World Baseball Classic last year, I know there weren't any games in the DFW area, but I know there were members of the Rangers that partook in the festivities. Roki Sasaki caught a lot of people's attention because, one, he's young, as I mentioned, 22 years old. Two, he can throw ridiculously hard. Like, Sasaki is one of those, he would be next year's version of Yoshinobu Yamamoto, like what Yoshi was this year for teams looking for a posted Japanese star. He is the equivalent of that next year, but younger and maybe even more talented than Yamamoto. And look, if you don't believe me in terms of how talented Roki Sasaki is, just look up his WBC highlights from last year. The dude is throwing, on average, 99 to 100 miles an hour with his fastball, which in today's day and age of baseball, we love to see speed. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, obviously did not actually say this, America's all about speed, hot, nasty, badass speed. Shout out Ricky Bobby. Boy, what a fun ad that would be if the Rangers were able to get it. It's probably nothing to freak out about or overanalyze about right now, but it is interesting that the Rangers did send scouts over to check out Roki's debut in Japan. And we know that the Rangers had no problem spending money in years past. This offseason was very different. Hopefully the next offseason, when this story comes around again, because it is definitely something that we're going to be keeping an eye on, and if the Rangers are mentioned once, surely they'll be mentioned again. This is something that will definitely pique the interest of many as the season carries on. So props to Evan for passing along that reporting, and very curious to see how that goes. I know Bob Nightingale reported that some GMs believe that the Dodgers have basically already locked up Sasaki for next year once he becomes posted. Blah, gross. But we'll see. Hopefully it's something that can turn to fruitful opportunity for Texas. And could you imagine adding him to a rotation that already has Jacob deGrom, that already has Nate Eovaldi, that soon on their way will have Jack Leiter? Like, I just get giddy thinking about the idea of adding Roki Sasaki to that mix. That would be absolutely nuts. All right, let's wrap things up on this edition. Here come the Astros, everybody's favorite. And by that, I absolutely mean most hated team, right? Of course, the local rivalry between the two Texas teams. Really quickly, we'll just touch on the pitching matchups. And I will point out, too, that the Astros collected 2 wins after getting swept by the Yankees in their opening series at home. So the Astros are now 2-5 on the year. Of course, their first win of the season had to come in the form of a no-hitter. And the story of Ronel Blanco is a great one. But, of course, we're not going to give up credit for the wins. Rangers at 4-2, Astros at 2-5. Their first game is going to be on Friday, April 5th in Globe Life Park. First matchup is set up to be Hunter Brown against Cody Bradford. Cody had a really solid 5 innings against the Cubs in his first start. Hoping to see that replicated again. That'll be a fun, young pitching duel. Saturday, Houston does not have a tabbed starter, and it'll be John Gray for Texas. Hopefully he can bounce back after his rough outing against the Cubs on Sunday. And then Ronel Blanco, the aforementioned, who threw the no-hitter, the first one of the season, will go against Dane Dunning on the Sunday evening. That one's going to be on ESPN. That'll be the Sunday Night Baseball game. So we'll wait for that game to finish for reactions to that one. And then there's another game on Monday evening against the Astros. And this one is Framber Valdez, the top of Houston's rotation, against Andrew Heaney, who had a solid start, and hopefully he could replicate that again against this Astros team that we, sarcasm, love so dearly, right? And that's going to do it for this edition. If you have any questions, comments, want to reach out to me about things that you like about the show, things that you have critiques on, things that you would love to hear, people that you would love to hear on this show, reach out to me at mitchv55@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, at swingandmitch, play on words there, like that. You can also find me on Instagram at Mitch Says Hey, and then be sure you can not only listen to these podcasts that you're listening to, but you can watch every episode on YouTube. Just search for Mitch Vareldis or search for Believe in Texas Rangers, and the episodes should populate from there. But until then, we will recap after the Astros-Rangers Sunday night baseball affair. And until that time, believe in the Texas Rangers.